Hello, and welcome to our 6 short courses to financial freedom. This is course number 5 on building wealth. Let's begin. First, let's define wealth and why it is paramount to reaching financial freedom. Wealth means the abundance of valuable financial assets or physical possessions which can be converted into a form that can be used for transactions. In order to be financially free, we have to have an abundance of wealth. Without wealth, there is no financial freedom. In the first quarter of our lives, we go to school to prepare us to work. And when we are working during our 20s up until our 60s, we're working to generate income and save enough wealth so that one day we don't have to work anymore. So the big question is, what is your plan for building wealth so that it will last as long as you live? A recent survey showed that 63% of people have a greater fear of running out of money in retirement than dying. Have you ever thought about what will happen to you if you run out of retirement income? In this course, we will cover some important things to know when building your nest egg for your future. We will go over some roadblocks that you will face while building your wealth, the different options for your money to grow, the importance of rate of return, and we'll show you how you can calculate your wealth. As you accumulate wealth in your lifetime, you will come across 4 major threats to your wealth, and that is inflation, taxes, market risk, and your health. Let's take a closer look at each and how it can impact your wealth. The first roadblock to building wealth is inflation. Inflation is the rise in prices of goods and services over time. When prices increase, your purchasing power for each dollar decreases. For instance, you could get a gallon of gas in the 50s for just 18 cents. Compared to now, it's almost $5 per gallon, depending where you live. The average inflation rate has been about 3% each year. Many have the misconception that if they have their money in a bank, it is safe. But a good rule of thumb to remember when it comes to inflation is that if you have money sitting in an account earning little to no interest at all, you're just safely losing your money. It's like having a hole in your piggy bank. So with that said, do you have money sitting in accounts earning more or less than inflation? The next roadblock that can slow down while you are diligently building your wealth is taxes. Taxes is an obligatory contribution to state revenue imposed by the government on workers' income and business profits, or added to the cost of some goods, services, and transactions. There's a saying by Benjamin Franklin, "In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." We all have to pay it, but very few take time to understand it and find ways to decrease our tax liabilities. Tax will be one of the biggest bills you will ever pay in your lifetime. There's income tax, property tax, tax on purchases, even tax when we die. It's called estate tax. But what if we could find ways to minimize our taxes? If you can find ways to minimize your tax liabilities, you will automatically increase your wealth. Let's take a look back in history to see how taxes can affect your wealth. Taxes were created during the Civil War, and the first federal income tax was enacted in 1913, and the top tax bracket rate was only 7%. However, in 1944, the tax was as high as 94%. Imagine what would happen to your after-tax income. Now, knowing that tax can change and how much it can change, wouldn't it make sense to alleviate some of that tax liability now and in the future? Let's see how this can impact your wealth. Like we mentioned before, you can't really escape from taxes. So let's learn more about how we get taxed and what we can do to prevent our wealth from getting into Uncle Sam's pocket. Learn about the 3 tax buckets. There are 3 ways your money gets taxed. There's tax now, tax later, and tax advantage bucket. In the tax now bucket, you pay taxes on interest, earnings, and dividends every single year. So you can think of stocks and bonds, mutual funds, savings accounts, and CDs. In the tax later bucket, you're not taxed until you start taking out money. Things that fall into this category would be your traditional retirement funds, traditional IRA, 401k, 403b, annuities, and pensions, if you're lucky to have one from your employer. And the last bucket is what we call tax advantage or tax-free. Money in this account is usually after it has been taxed, and your earnings and distributions are never taxed. This can include your Roth accounts, permanent cash value life insurance, municipal bonds, and college savings plans like the 529 if used accordingly. When you take a look at these buckets, where is most of your money sitting? Do you want to pay tax on your money now or later? You can think of it like this. If you were a farmer, would you want to be taxed on your seeds today or your harvest later in the future, not knowing what the tax rate may be? The next roadblock that we will face while building our wealth is market risk. Market risk is the risk of losses in positions arising from movements in market variables like prices and volatility. If you have money in the market, do you know how it impacts your money? Let's take a little quiz. If you had $100 and you invested today and you lost 50%, what rate of return does it take to get back to 100? Now, many of you might say, oh, 50%. But realistically, 50% will only bring you back up to $75. In reality, you will really need 100% gain in order to make up for your 50% loss. So know the impact of market risk and how it affects your money. It can hurt more than you think. The last roadblock to building wealth is our health. You may be healthy today so that we can go to work and earn income for our future. But what will happen if you suddenly fall ill or become disabled and can no longer generate income? Not only will you accumulate a lot of medical bills that can potentially wipe out your savings, but you have no way of generating more income. Do you have proper protection in place to help you protect your assets from health-related issues? You might want to go back and check out course number 4 on proper protection if you don't. That covers our 4 roadblocks on building wealth. Now let's talk about ways you can help your money to grow. Generally speaking, there are 3 ways to grow your money. You can have a fixed rate of return, variable or indexed. In a fixed rate of return, your money will grow at a fixed rate. So you can think of a bank savings account. Every year, the bank will give you a 0.3% interest year after year. In a variable account, your money will grow depending on the market. It could be negative, it could be positive. You can think of a stock, for instance. It can go up and it can go down. You can get a high return, but also lose all your money. It's not very predictable. And then there's an index rate of return, where your money will mirror an index in the market. So when the market goes up, your money will go up. But when the market is down, you get a floor protection against loss. So you lock in that rate and you never lose any money. And when the market goes up again, your money will go up like a staircase. There is also a cap or maximum, which can limit your growth. You can say that more growth comes with more risk. You'll have to find the sweet spot of where you want your money or diversify into different buckets so you don't have all eggs in one basket. How you decide to invest your money will depend on how much risk you are willing to take. This brings us to learning about the effects of rate of return and the real rate of return on our investments. Many forget to factor in tax and inflation in the rate of return. Let's take a look at this example. If you have money in an account earning 3% interest, you may be thinking, that's great. But let's take a closer look when you factor in inflation and taxes, the real rate of return. If you had $100 in an account earning 3% interest after inflation and taxes, you are actually still losing money because you will end up with $98.75 after you factor in inflation and taxes. In example 2, we show you that you really need to have your money in an account earning at least 5% in order to beat out inflation and taxes and be up. Here are some tips to help you build and keep your wealth. Of course, saving more and spending less are some obvious ways. Make sure you pay close attention to the rate of return. Also, make sure that you're earning a rate of return higher than inflation. Look for investment vehicles with tax advantages. And of course, start early and start now, because time is money. Invest and allow time and compound interest to grow your money. That concludes our course on building wealth. If you want to start building your wealth today, download our worksheet and set a time to chat with one of our financial professionals for a complimentary evaluation. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please share to make the world a better place.